You must have all heard about the legal hiccups Microsoft is facing trying to buy Activision, who also owns Blizzard, with games like Warcraft, Call of Duty 1, Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty 3, and so on. The worry is that people are afraid that Microsoft could become too powerful in the gaming space. But this is certainly not the first time Microsoft tried to assert dominance into the gaming space. So how did Microsoft get into the gaming space? What role has Microsoft been playing? Is Microsoft a player or more like a game changer? We're going to answer all of these in today's episode. Microsoft got started in gaming with a PC game written in BASIC by Bill Gates and Neil Conson in 1981. That game was called Donkey. It is about the most simple game you can imagine, just switching lanes to avoid the donkey. I literally programmed harder games on TI-83, so maybe I have the potential to build a tech giant as well. Later on, MS-DOS became the de facto host to thousands of games, from the obscure like Biomenace to masterpieces like Doom. You can say DOS became the first significant contribution from Microsoft for the gaming industry. With all the popularity and the quantity of games on DOS, there was a huge problem that could significantly impact the gamer's experience. That is, inconsistent hardware support. If a game didn't support the hardware you owned, you are out of luck. For example, if you don't have a sound blaster, you might have to play Commander Keen in silence. In Windows 1.0, which launched in 1985, there wasn't even a way to play the DOS games without quitting Windows and hopping back into DOS. Well, that all changed in Windows 95 with DirectX. DirectX was an API or application programming interface that had a set of commands that would work regardless of the hardware you had, as long as they have the proper drivers. This allowed the developers to write games for PC much easier. I know it's an industry standard today, but back then, convincing people to switch to a set of unproven API was not an easy sell. So, to show the level of commitment, Microsoft actually ported the Doom to DirectX as Doom 95 by an employee named, you guessed it, Gabe Newell. Yep, the CEO and founder of Valve. Doom 95 became a sensation at the time and also drove a lot of developers onto the DirectX platform. As time went on, Microsoft continued to add features to DirectX to make games easier to write, look better, and also perform better. With the latest release, DirectX 12 Ultimate, Microsoft has tried to unlock console-level performance with low-level controls as well as better support for ray tracing. It's fair to say, DirectX APIs ensured a stable, standardized, and strong developer platform. Games on Windows have prospered since the early 90s and are still going on strong. So here we go, with both DOS and DirectX, Microsoft provided critical platforms for the gaming industry, so I'd say Microsoft was not a player but definitely a leader and innovator for PC gaming. After PC, obviously the next place you can think of Microsoft's influence in gaming is Xbox. If you haven't seen my other videos on video game console history and console wars, check out the links up here. As you may already know, initially, while the console wars were heating up between Nintendo, Sega, and Sony since the 1980s, Microsoft was not part of it until 2001 when they came out with their first console, the original Xbox. So why wasn't Microsoft involved in the console wars earlier? Maybe they were very invested in bigger initiatives like Windows and Office, or maybe they wanted to ensure they are super dominant on the PC gaming front first. But from the profitability point of view, console manufacturers don't necessarily make a profit on console hardware itself, but getting a licensing fee for every game sold, which is typically a 30% cut. Plus other revenues from online services, which could be a huge motivator for Microsoft. So eventually, Microsoft decided they wanted a piece of the pie. And when they showed up with the Xbox, it was definitely an earthquake for the console market, as all gaming consoles at the time were specialized hardware dedicated for playing games in the living room with a TV, which were less powerful than a computer on many fronts, but optimizing for graphics. Yet, when the first Xbox came in, Microsoft knew their strengths and assets were with the PC game developer communities, and they wanted to bring all of them into the console world. So in order to make PC games easier to be ported to Xbox, they basically used the PC architecture for the Xbox instead of a specialized design one. This instantaneously made Xbox the most powerful console by a long shot at the time. This also forever changed the console hardware horizon. From there on, Sony and Microsoft became the decade-long console rivals till this day. The second disruptive change was their online service, Xbox Live, which was a gold standard for online gaming and is still around today. Unlike other online services at the time, with Xbox Live you had your one account, voice chat, and friends that you could possess throughout all your games. It is something that PC players could enjoy, but it was never done right on consoles before Xbox. As Xbox Live evolved, it got new features like cloud backup, so you can pick up the games where you left out, no matter where you were. Can you believe Microsoft had cloud backup years before their competitors like Sony? The third disruptive change for Xbox was the introduction of backwards compatibility. Sure, other consoles had this, but they would typically be hardware-based and often removed in later revisions of the hardware, like PS3. Microsoft's solution was to use emulation, which did not support all games, but did a great job on the games that it supported, like Crimson Skies or Time Splitters 2. You can actually play supported Xbox games across OG Xbox, Xbox 360, One, Series X or S. They even started adding performance and resolution updates to some of the old games, like Fallout 3, which plays at 60 FPS in 4K. Lastly, smart delivery is a great way to have games versions just work between Xbox One and Xbox Series consoles. Having a game just work between different consoles sounds like a no-brainer, but this is something that Sony often struggle with. And these are the things around the console services that Microsoft is really exceeding and leading. Now, after building great platforms and the Xbox, the only way to be forever and always glorious in the gaming industry is to keep producing big titles, and the exclusive ones are the best. Microsoft sure realized that. In fact, before Xbox, Microsoft did not make many of their own titles at all, but it was more about enabling the developer community. So when Microsoft was close to launching the Xbox, they figured quickly that the best way to get great games was to buy other game studios. And guess what is the company that first popped out in their mind? Yes, Nintendo. And that makes total sense, right? Wouldn't you want to own the best producer if you can? I'm not kidding, they were dead serious. They actually flew the Nintendo execs to Microsoft headquarters in Redmond and proposed a deal where Microsoft would handle the hardware and Nintendo handle the games after the acquisition. Needless to say, Nintendo loved them out of the room. Yeah, they were also seriously not for sale. So Microsoft quickly switched the tactics and got Halo as an exclusive game made by Bungie. Funny enough, Microsoft doesn't own Bungie till this day, but owns exclusive rights to all the Halo games and the products related to it. Fast forward to launch day, the flagship game Halo came out and it blew people away. Not only was it a good console first-person shooter, it was probably the best FPS at the time. This really helped sell the Xbox as a legitimate console, and the games are still extremely popular after 20 years. Halo was a great success clearly, but one title is nearly not enough. Microsoft needed to grow their game libraries in a fast and furious fashion. So in 2002, 1 year after Xbox launch, Microsoft acquired Rare, who is best known for making some of the best SNES and N64 games of all time. So why buy Rare? Obviously, so they could take on the rights to Donkey Kong, right? As it was one of the biggest figures in gaming history. Well, it was not until $375 million later Microsoft figured out that Rare only made Donkey Kong, but Nintendo owns all the rights, fair and square. So, Microsoft, hope you learned a lesson about doing thorough legal research before buying or putting any big investments, alright? And did they? You will be amazed at what happened next. After failing at trying to own Donkey Kong, they decided to launch an updated version of GoldenEye for Xbox 360, one of Nintendo 64's most famous games. And you think they should be set as they already owned Rare at the time. The team was also making great progress and the game was nearly complete. Well, it wouldn't be so easy, would it? As it turns out, Microsoft also needed Nintendo and MGM to agree to licensing the game, as Microsoft did not have exclusive rights. And obviously Nintendo and MGM said no, at least not until 2022. So that GoldenEye for 360 has waited so long and it will come out not only for Xbox One and Series X but also for Switch Online this year. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Microsoft we all know, considered one of the best, most powerful tech giants, owns the most brilliant people and an army of lawyers, has yet again failed at figuring out the rights for the games. I guess this must be the hardest problem for launching a game. Well, even though Microsoft spent a lot of money trying to launch games like Donkey Kong and GoldenEye and failed, the good thing is they do have a big pile of cash on hand, and their acquisition journey did not stop there. The next big acquisition Microsoft made was buying Mojang in 2014 at the height of Minecraft craze, and they really hit this one out of the park. Minecraft has remained one of the most popular games in the 8 years after they bought it. It is one of the few games that parents are actually happy for their kids to play and even used as educational resources by institutions. They also sold a bunch of stuffies and shirts, so the acquisition here is definitely a win. The next huge acquisition Microsoft got was ZeniMax for $7.5 billion in 2020, which includes Bethesda and id Software under its umbrella. After getting burned many times by rights, in this one purchase, Microsoft made sure they got future exclusives of Doom, The Elder Scrolls, including Skyrim, and the highly anticipated Starfield. In addition to buying games, we also should acknowledge that Microsoft also made great in-house games like Forza, Age of Empires, and Fable. With all these biggest games, Microsoft launched the Game Pass in 2017, which is kind of a Netflix for games, where Microsoft is trying to shift a large portion of the revenue from sales over to monthly subscription. Microsoft later added game streaming via xCloud to Game Pass Ultimate in 2020. All of this ties really well into Microsoft's strengths in cloud. As they're highly invested in cloud, they're easily the leader of streaming games. So there you go, this is a journey of how Microsoft disrupted the gaming industry by acquiring studios and building their gaming empires. And now this brings us back to the original point. Will Microsoft be successfully purchasing Activision? I think there may be concessions given to ensure competitions, like Call of Duty on PlayStation for an extended time, but I do think that it will eventually happen. And that would be another disruptive change that Microsoft brings to the gaming industry, to you and me. Thank you so much for watching. I'm your host, Little Bear. Until next time, signing off.